The Boston Celtics are officially your 2024 NBA champions. After years of being so close to getting banner number 18, they've finally done it. And what a year for the Boston Celtics. Shout out to their fans, the team, and really the front office for building this team.
Yeah, what Brad Stevens and Danny Ainge did over basically the past 10 years to build a champion, I mean, blueprint for all other teams to follow.
Before we start talking about how the Boston Celtics built a championship team, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on any new videos. So the foundation of this current Boston Celtics championship team was really built from the remnants of the old Boston Celtics title winning team. In 2013, after regressing for 3 straight seasons, failing to get back to the NBA finals or really do much in the playoffs, the Celtics decided to trade away Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett to the Brooklyn Nets, and a deal that would net them 3 unprotected first round picks. In this trade, we all know it, one of the worst in NBA history, but it is interesting to go back and see the takes at the time. Most takes I've seen and what I remember thought the Nets won the trade.
Yeah, I mean, Bleacher Report gave them an A grade. Bill Simmons, famous Celtics fan, his reaction was, quote, "Did you hear the Boston Celtics traded away their 2 best players the past 20 years for some meaningless draft picks?" I mean, I get it from a Celtics fan perspective. You know, you're trading away Pierce and Garnett, 2 franchise icons, but on the flip side, I mean, they were coming off a series where they were, 41-40? Like, they weren't a championship contender by any means. They were getting older. I get the argument that you want to let them, ride out the end of their careers, but if they were open to the move, neither of them sought it out, but if they were open to it, I mean, might as well cash in on them while you can. And I do love how this trade, I mentioned it a bunch of times, but this trade was so bad that it basically scared every other NBA team into not trading first round picks for the next 6 years. Now they just give them away like they're candy on Halloween. But I mean, Paul George goes for 0 first round picks. Jimmy Butler goes for 1 first round pick. Rajon Rondo, who we'll talk about a little later, 1 first round pick. The fact that the Nets got burned so badly by this trade just terrified every other team. And I do wonder if it's going to happen again because of how much teams just throw away first round picks now.
I guess it's just the cycle. Teams get burnt, everyone learns, and then they get enticed by those star players. So yeah, that's definitely true. But they weren't done with trades there, because they also traded Doc Rivers to the Clippers for a 2015 first round pick. This is when I found out you could trade a coach. I guess it makes sense. He signed to the contract, but what the hell? Only Doc.
I mean, I knew you could do it in the NFL because back in the day, Gruden got traded from the Raiders to the Buccaneers. So I knew you could do it in the NFL. I did not know you could do it in the NBA. And is this something that should be allowed? I guess there's nothing inherently wrong with it. It just feels really weird.
Allow it just because it's funny. That's the only reason I want it. I want to see this happen again. I want a coach to demand a trade. How about that?
Ty Lue demands a trade to the Lakers.
Yeah. The Celtics would replace Doc with Brad Stevens to be their next head coach. He didn't have any NBA coaching experience at the time, but we saw what he did with Butler. Led them to 2 national titles, came up just short in each. It was a perfect situation because he wasn't immediately going to be rushed in to contend. He could learn things, feel some things out. He's obviously still with them today in that front office role. Great hire. Brad Stevens, just a brilliant basketball mind. And credit to the Celtics for taking a risk on a guy from college.
On to the 2013-14 season, not surprising, the Celtics were not very good the following year. Rajon Rondo was coming back from an ACL injury. He only ended up playing 30 games, and the roster outside of him, just not very good. They only ended up winning 25 games, 5th worst record in the league. That got them the 6th pick in the 2014 draft, and they took Marcus Smart out of Oklahoma State. Interesting pick for the Celtics, considering at the time they already had Rondo and Avery Bradley, and they just gave Avery Bradley a new 4-year deal. So at this point, kind of looks like Rondo is the odd man out at this point.
Yep, and they sent him out pretty early. They started 9-14 the following season, sent him out in December to the Dallas Mavericks, got back Jay Crowder, Brandon Wright, Jameer Nelson, a 2016 first round pick and a 2016 second. Not a huge haul for a star point guard who's only 28 years old. I know we just talked about teams getting burnt and trades were different back then, but that's really not much of a haul at all.
Yeah, but Rondo is he's a distributor. Like, he needs a certain team around him to play well. He needs other good players to distribute the ball to. Like, if he's playing with a bunch of bums, like, he's not going to thrive as much as he would on a team like the Mavericks. I mean, I guess he didn't thrive on the Mavericks either, but you get my point. Like, he does best when he has other good players around him, and the Celtics were not that at that point.
2 months later, they picked up their new point guard, Isaiah Thomas. They sent out a 2016 first, Tayshaun Prince, who they had just gotten in a trade, played 9 games. Little trivia for you: Tayshaun Prince played for the Celtics, and Marcus Thornton to get back IT. A great trade based on what Isaiah Thomas would become, and a great trade immediately. They won 22 of their next 34 games, got the 7th seed, but then just got worked by LeBron and the Cavs. Like, they were getting better, a really quick turnaround, but they weren't Cavs better. Not even close.
No, not even remotely close. In the draft, though, they did pick up Terry Rozier with the 16th pick. Great pick. Scary Terry, still making an impact in the NBA to this day. And on to the 2015-16 season, this was really the year that the Celtics established themselves as being a player in the East again. They won 48 games. Isaiah Thomas was an all-star. Avery Bradley was first-team all-defense. Once again, though, they go down in the first round. The Hawks took them out in 6, but it was clear that they were, back on the way up. And because Brooklyn at this point had basically gone to shit, the Boston Celtics, who made the playoffs, got the 3rd pick in the 2016 NBA draft, and they picked Jaylen Brown out of Cal.
Just ridiculous. Usually when this happens, like the Pistons, you know how they could have drafted Melo, they took Darko, or like the Lakers back in the day, like it's a one-off, 1 year. Like,
this was going to happen again the next year.
Yeah, and they still had another after that. So you add Jaylen Brown to this team, a nice two-way prospect. They had the solid young group of guys led by IT, and then they also had cap space, so they go out and sign Al Horford to a 4-year, $113 million deal. This is the perfect situation for a rebuild. This is 2K stuff, or like kind of what the Thunder, like the phase they're in at the moment to this day, where everything is going right for you.
Love that from Al Horford, by the way. Beat the Celtics in the playoffs and then sign for them.
Yeah.
Love that.
Y'all need my help. Let me show you the way.
2016-17, this was the Isaiah Thomas breakout season. He averaged 29 points and 6 assists per game, got 2nd team All-NBA, finished 5th in MVP voting, and behind Isaiah, the Celtics would finish as the top seed in the Eastern Conference. So if you're keeping track, they blew their whole team up in the 2013 offseason, and by the 2017 playoffs, they were already back as having the 1st seed in their conference.
Just absolutely crazy. They beat the Bulls in 6 in the first round, although there was a scare. This was that interesting Bulls team that gets forgotten about, where they had Jimmy Butler, D Wade, and Rondo. They went up 2-0, winning both games in Boston, but Rondo fractures his thumb. He missed the rest of the series, and the Celtics win in 6. Then they took out the Wizards in a tough 7-game series, matching them up with the Cavs once again. But again, like, they could not keep up. Isaiah Thomas was dealing with that just nasty hip injury. LeBron was balling out. This was the 2017 Cavs, which were an absolutely insane team. Only lost 1 game in the Eastern Conference playoffs, so they couldn't keep up. But luckily for them, the first overall pick in the 2017 draft was awaiting them.
Just falls in your lap.
As the first seed. That's not fair.
So on to the 2017-18 season, the Celtics would actually end up trading back to the 3rd pick in the 2017 NBA draft because they knew they wanted Jason Tatum, and they knew the Sixers wanted Fultz, and of course the Lakers wanted Lonzo. So they trade back, they get an extra 1st-round pick, which they eventually use on Romeo Langford. So, missed on that, but still, you trade back and you get by far the best player of the top 3. Like, not even close.
Yeah, it's crazy that the Lakers didn't end up taking Tatum, especially because
he's a Kobe disciple.
Yeah, exactly. But whatever, that happened. They also signed Gordon Hayward to a 4-year, $127 million deal. Fortunately, it didn't work out for Gordo. He got injured. We'll talk about that. But at the time, he was a very good player. And then Kyrie, the bombshell happens. He requested trade. Celtics actually weren't on his short list, but they just had the assets to go get him. At the time, it seemed like a pretty even trade. Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, 2018 first, they still had from the Nets.
If anything, it maybe felt like the Celtics gave up a little too much.
Yeah, a lot of people thought the Cavs won the trade. Obviously, the Celtics got the best player in the deal. So during that offseason, you had Jason Tatum, the best prospect in the NBA draft that season. You signed Gordon Hayward, an all-star. You get Kyrie in a trade, another all-star. Incredible offseason this year. But then less than 6 minutes into the following season, just straight up disaster struck. Gordon Hayward was going for like a lob or something and just ruined his ankle. I mean, we'll blur it out. We're not going to show it on screen. If you want to see it, go ahead.
I remember being in my college dorm room at the time and just being in complete utter shock because it shows the angle from the baseline where his foot is just facing the wrong way. And it sucks so much because he was never the same player ever again.
Nowhere near. Also, Kyrie has season-ending knee surgery in March. So they're without their 2 stars, the 2 all-stars they just acquired. Team is so deep, they still won 55 games, get the 2nd seed out east, beat the Bucks in 7 in the first round. They take out Embiid and the 76ers in 5 in the second round. And things are then looking pretty damn good. They have a 3-2 lead over the Cavs, but LeBron just took over. LeBron went crazy at the end of the series.
Lethanos gonna Lethanos.
Right.
I mean, the only way he could beat was by literally the basketball equivalent of the Avengers.
Yeah, that one play where Marcus Morris like basically tries to like tackle him or grab him down and he still gets the and one.
And then fucking roars at the crowd like,
yeah. In the following draft, they didn't have a pick from the Nets this time because they sent out in the Kyrie deal. But how about this? The 27th overall pick, they take Robert Williams, a guy who unfortunately has dealt with so many injuries, just got injured for the Blazers again this year. But when he plays, he's a very good rim protector and he'd prove to be a valuable trade asset. We'll talk about that later on.
The 2018-19 season, though, Celtics came into this year as the favorites out east as LeBron had defected to the West to the Lakers. They were the 2nd favorite behind Golden State to win the title. You get Kyrie and Gordo back to a team that, without either of them, took the Cavs to 7 in the conference finals the year prior. So you're thinking, okay, this team can go all the way to the finals. Best team in the East by far. This season was a disaster. They regressed big time, won only 49 games. Kyrie struggled with a whole bunch of issues this year. He was trying to be a leader, but at this point in his career, he didn't have the experience. And also he was dealing with a lot of personal stuff we're not going to get into, but some family stuff. He's come out and said during this finals that, it was a dark time for him. He wasn't, ready for that. Sure, they swept the Pacers in the first round and they go up 1-0 on the Milwaukee Bucks. Paul Pierce infamously says that series is over, and then they get clobbered in 4 straight games by Milwaukee. So you have all the hype in the world, all the expectations in the world, and you're bounced in 5 in the second round. In the 2019 draft, though, they took Romeo Langford with the 14th overall pick. That was the pick they acquired from Philadelphia to move down. So, you miss on that, but you do take Grant Williams with the 22nd pick, which is a pretty good pick, but this offseason it had its ups and downs. I mean, Kyrie, who said like about a year ago at this time that he was going to resign if the Celtics would have him. It could be argued the Celtics didn't really want him back at this point, but he was off to Brooklyn. Al Horford will also leave the team to sign with Philadelphia. Don't really know why. I think it was just money at this point.
Yeah, money. And I've also heard, I don't know if this is true, but like Kyrie, he was not a big fan of him on the team. There was like uncertainty at the point guard position. At the time, the 76ers were seen as like the up and coming team. So that kind of makes sense. And like you said, money. Dude got the bag.
4 years, 100-something million or whatever for old Al Horford.
Right. They replaced Kyrie with Kemba Walker, who was a very good player at the time. His career kind of quickly fell apart for the Celtics, but he was very good. They send out Terry Rozier in a sign and trade to get him. And then they lock up Jaylen Brown to a 4-year, $115 million deal. So it felt like they had taken a step back as a team. Like they weren't quite in that contender tier anymore. Maybe they were like a fringe contender, but without Kyrie now, without Horford gone, now seeing like Gordon Hayward, it didn't feel like he was the same player. I mean, you surround those guys with Daniel Tice, Enes Kanter, Marcus Smart. It's a good team, but it's not a contending team anymore.
Even with that said, though, I mean, if you go by winning percentage, they were a better team in 2020. They won one less game, but this was the COVID-shortened year, so they had a better winning percentage. Made it back to the conference finals for the 3rd time in 4 years. Swept Philadelphia in the first round. Al Horford really didn't make that much of a difference. The Sixers got him to defend Giannis, and they didn't even make it to Giannis, but, that's whatever. Took out the defending champion Raptors in 7 in the second round in a really good series, honestly. And then in the conference finals, just couldn't get past the Miami Heat, obviously. Obviously, there was that iconic block in game 1 where Bam just palm blocked Tatum's dunk attempt, and the Celtics would eventually go down in 6. Definitely a good year for the Celtics, given all they lost the prior offseason. Kemba and Tatum both made the All-Star team. Jaylen Brown took a big leap. Once again, just couldn't quite make it back to the finals.
Yeah, a good bounce back year for sure, and it kind of further showed Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum were not going anywhere, and these dudes were future stars. They cemented themselves. Kemba Walker looked very good this year. He was an all-star starter. Like we said, didn't keep it up, but an incredible bounce back year given that offseason. And then during the following offseason, Gordon Hayward's time in Boston would end. He'd get sent to the Hornets in a sign and trade. They got back a couple of second-round picks for him. Just a sad situation, especially like look at Gordon Hayward today for the Thunder, doing nothing for them.
His wife's complaining on TikTok about him not playing.
Yeah, his career's basically over, and who knows what could have happened without the injury. Just a sad situation. That was really their only major move this offseason. They brought in Tristan Thompson, who was basically washed up at this point, but besides that, they were running it back. And this just was not a good year. The worst season in the Tatum and Brown era. They went 500, so still not awful, but they had players out with COVID, dealt with injuries. Jaylen Brown suffered a season-ending wrist injury in May. They made the playoffs still as the 7th seed, taking on Kyrie and the Nets, but that was that Nets team that when all the 3 of those guys played, they just balled out. So they took them out in 5, and the Boston Celtics were out in the first round.
So into the 2021 offseason, big changes for the Celtics. Danny Ainge resigns as GM, and interestingly enough, Brad Stevens, the current head coach, gets reassigned to fill the role. Not something you see very often in the NBA. I think the other big example you could probably think of is when Pat Riley did it for Miami. It's not something you see very often, and tough shoes to fill for Brad Stevens, but I mean, we'll talk about it. He has done a phenomenal job. I mean, his first move as GM was to bring back Al Horford. They sent out Kemba along with a 2021 first and a 2025 second to the Thunder for Horford, Moses Brown, and a 2023 second. They also hired Ime Udoka to be their head coach. Fun fact, a lot of Blazer fans wanted him to be our coach after we fired Terry, but we went with Chauncey, and
regret that.
Had a bit of a shaky start to the 2022 season. They went 2-5 in their first 7 games. This prompted Marcus Smart to basically call out noted Kobe enthusiast Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown for ball hogging. He said that they needed to pass more, which they started doing, but even still, early January, the Celtics were 18-21 after a loss to the Knicks, and this was when a lot of the trade talk about, well, should they break up the duo of Tatum and Brown? Because at this point, it was not working.
Yeah, but Brad Stevens follows that up, making a fantastic trade with the Spurs to get Derek White. They sent out 2 future firsts, Josh Richardson, and then just some role players to get him. At the time, maybe it looked like a fair deal, but this was an absolute fleece. Derek White has gotten so much better since then and looks to be a player for the future that's not going anywhere. And then post All-Star break, they were the hottest team in the league. They won 51 games, secured the 2nd seed out east. This matched them up again with the Nets in the first round. This time they're the 2nd seed. And like we said, they swept them. Tatum had that game winner in game 1, and Kyrie was just completely shut down. So in round 2, they played the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks, and at one point it looked like they were in trouble. Game 5 in Boston, Drew Holiday was just clutch as hell down the stretch, but the Celtics respond. They win game 6 in Milwaukee. Tatum balls the hell out, and then game 7, they just shot the lights out. So tough 7-game series, but they get past them. They then play the Heat in the conference finals. Another tough 7-game series. They nearly choked game 7, actually. If you go back, they were up like 10 points with like 4 minutes to go. Then Jimmy Butler, near the end of it, had a chance to win it and just came up short.
Got a great look from 3.
He did. It's a really good look.
Just leaves it a little bit short.
But the Celtics get the win, and they advance to their first NBA Finals in 12 years.
Yeah, they're matched up with Steph and the Warriors, and we just recently made a video about this series. Steph kind of cooked them, if we're being honest.
He did.
Tatum didn't play particularly well. I think set the NBA Finals record for turnovers. So, definitely not the best series. They took a 2-1 lead and then lost 3 straight. So, obviously it's disappointing to lose in the finals, but considering the way they started this season, the fact that they even made the finals is an incredible achievement. And going into 22-23, it looked like they were going to carry that momentum. And then Ime Udoka got suspended for the entire season for an improper relationship with a female staff member. We're just going to leave it at that. Not going to dive headlong into that. Not a great idea for us to talk about that, but he's suspended the entire year. So immediately it's like, well, they don't have a coach anymore.
And then apparently they have Joe Mazzulla, this basketball genius, just chilling on the sidelines. So he gets promoted just as interim at first, but then he is just so good. He leads them to a 42-17 record at the All-Star break. So they decide, screw it. We're just going to make this dude the full-time head coach. Celtics finished the season winning 57 games. Tatum was incredible this year. Brown also improved, and Malcolm Brogdon, he won Sixth Man of the Year. They take out the Hawks in 6 during the first round. The Heat take out the Bucks, so now they're the highest seed out East left, like the best team in the East it looked like. Beat the 76ers in 7 during the second round. There were some moments in the series where like, they're about to lose the 76ers team, but Tatum came up huge in game 6, then drops that 50-piece in game 7, so they get a rematch against the Heat in the conference finals. This time though, it's an 8-seeded Miami Heat team. They go down 3-0 to them, battle all the way back to force a game 7 at TD Garden just to get blown out by 19
Get
points.
Schwacked by 19. And I will never forget the fact that I called the Heat winning this game. I f***ed up badly picking Dallas to win the finals in 5 games, but I got this one game right 2 years ago when everyone said Boston was going to be the first team to overcome that 3-0 deficit. Now, it probably doesn't happen if Tatum doesn't turn his ankle on the first play, but it happened. I got this one right.
Regardless, it was so damn fun.
I'm sure you loved it.
Oh, it was amazing. So that brings us to this season. The Celtics had a perfect offseason. Like, there's no other way you can put it. They didn't decide to do anything crazy, like break up Tatum and Brown, like some people were saying they needed to. They first sent out Marcus Smart in a 3-team deal that netted them back Kristaps Porzingis and a first-round pick. I'm still scratching my head trying to figure out how they did that. I don't get it. They signed Jaylen Brown to a Supermax deal worth 5 years, $304 million at the time of this recording. That is the largest contract in NBA history. And then to top it all off, they trade for Jrue Holiday. They used that pick they got in the deal for Porzingis, and the Blazers just gift them Jrue Holiday. They had to send out Malcolm Brogdon, Robert Williams, and 2 future firsts to get him. I mean, what else can you say? Brad Stevens was cooking this offseason.
He was cooking this offseason, but I'm shedding a tear for Marcus Smart.
Yeah.
Poor guy was with the Celtics for so long, got so close to the mountaintop so many times, and the year they ship him off, they have this incredible run. And I mean, what a run it's been for the Celtics. 64 wins in the regular season, best record in the league, easily beat the Heat in 5 games in the first round, easily beat the Cavs in 5 games in the second round. They swept the Pacers in the conference finals. You know, all the games were close, but Boston closed them out in 4. And then in the NBA finals against the hottest team in the NBA, the Dallas Mavericks, a lot of people, myself included, were picking the Mavs to win this series, and the Celtics very definitively beat them in 5. This is just like a 7-year masterclass from the Celtics front office in how you build an NBA champion.
So what do you guys think? Have the Celtics built a future dynasty now? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and hey, while you're here, check out some of our other videos as well. And don't forget to subscribe. Synthetic Sports.